This is one of my favorite builds so far. The reason for that is very simple: sustainability. This guy right here has one of the highest sustainabilities, if not the highest sustainabilities in the entirety of the game. You're never going to need healing anymore. You're always going to be able to fight against anything, and when you mess up, like I did right here, you made too many mistakes, you fell into too much damage from the enemy, too much AoE. This is one of the characters that can sustain, that can remain alive for longer if you play him properly to finish up that boss that you're fighting against that you messed up real bad. So you can keep healing and healing and healing and playing safely. That's the most important thing of everything. Play it safely so that you can keep healing and keep going back at it. So yeah, it's just amazing. When it comes to properly play, you're always going to be immortal because you're always going to be healing. So let's talk about the main mechanic of the Vampire Knights. Leech. The life force from your enemies for 5 seconds. Physical attacks restore 10% of damage dealt against leeched enemies. Heal self for 3% of your maximum health when a target affected by leech perishes. Similarly to, like for example, the Necromancer, how is this viable against boss fights? If you really have to be killing things for the percentage of health to be happening, well, that's actually quite simple, because we are going to be using quite some spells. Here you do have a little bit more of leniency. Here you can actually use a little bit more spells to be defensive. Now, when it comes to the actual spells or the actual skills, this is mid-game builds. I am, of course, on the endgame. I already finished up my game in this server, so there is indeed that. But where you're going to have access as soon as possible, it is not going to be Veil of Blood, so you're not going to be using Veil of Blood through the majority of your playthrough. But these two that you have right here, these are somewhat of sustainability. While you are getting, like for example, if you want to use Veil of Blood, and then you might as well forget about Blood Fountain and instead change that for Blood Rites. And then the bread and butter, what you're always going to have active, is going to be Blood Rage at the very least. This is just basically DPS. And it's also heal your nearby allies by 60% of your spell power, and apply Fading Haste that increases movement speed by 15%, attack speed by 25% for 4 seconds. It also inflicts Leech on nearby enemies. So this is just... you could say that the vampire, it's a vampiric knight. It's kind of a DPS, but it could also be a support. So if you want to play this as a support kind of character, you can. This specific for this purpose, for this build, we're building it as a tank. So yeah, Blood Rage, very important. Before you can actually use Blood Fountain and Veil of Blood altogether, then Blood Rite. If you're going to be playing this guy as a distance kind of character with a bow or a pistol, things like that, you can be using Shadow Bolts as well as Sanguine Coils. So that's actually kind of nice. But for the tank, we're going to be using, as when you get the chance to do so, once you manage to get the chance to do so, it's going to be the Blood Fountains, which is just basically healing and dealing damage with the enemies. Veil of Blood is also going to be basically healing. This is actually going to heal you for quite a lot, 5% of your maximum health. So this is actually quite a lot of healing. And then basically everything is healing, damage, leeching, and so on and so forth. And as for the ultimate, like always, I mean, it's up to your personal preference. I like the sustainability of damage for Crimson Beam, although you do have to have in mind, I think that this one deals more damage in the long term and the long run. However, do have in mind that this can be interrupted. So if you're having too much issues with the ultimate and it is getting too interrupted, you might as well use Heart Strike. The armor is very simple. You get this on the second act of the game, the Crimson Templar armor. This is going to increase your weapon attack speed, but it's also going to increase the weapon skill leech by 6%. Ideally, we want to have leech in our weapons. How do we have leech in our weapons? Well, basically you have to find a weapon, a sacred weapon, relic weapon, which is not that difficult. If you're doing your rift incursions, you should have lots and lots of them. Usually it's going to be longswords, I believe. I'm not entirely sure. I have like lots of weapons with different traits. I'm not entirely sure if different weapons can have like leech, but yeah, you should be focusing on leech in your weapon. Now this is going to increase more health than the rest of the armor sets. The armor set is also going to increase your health. The more health that you can possibly stack with this build, it's going to be better. Because remember that your leech and your healing, it's always be based on percentages. So the more health that you can stack, that's not going to be all the better. And then we're going to have the Pendant of the Night, which is going to increase our weapon skill life leech as well, and to give primary attack leech on our weapons. So that's something that we do need to have in mind. All of this, remember that all of this is kind of stuff that you can get on the second act of the game. However, this could also be used as a base. The thing is that as you improve your weapons, as you improve your gear, as you improve your armor, you can just be looking out there for the very same thing, which is leech. And yeah, like I said, I mean, one more final thing, one more little thing that we should consider is that the blood type that you should always be using, it's brute, because that is going to increase your healing capabilities by quite a lot. So yeah, you should always be using brute blood types. So there is indeed that. And the gameplay loop of this guy, it's actually fairly simple. You're always going to be healing yourself, and you're always going to be on the front side of the battle. If you're playing with friends, then this is just amazing, because you can be providing like extra DPS to your party, to your crew, but you can have the enemy engage in front of you while your friends are like doing different little things from a distance, or while they're doing DPS. Not that you're a bad DPS, you're not a bad DPS. It's just that your focus is sustainability. And with a game that doesn't have like healing potions, and that it has like different means of being able to survive on the battlefields, I think that this is my personal favorite, because it's basically healing at all times. It's just basically healing at all times, and it's just so easy to use. It's beginner friendly, and it's not like that difficult to fight against monsters or fight against beeflots, because you're always doing good. Although if I should have to give you a little bit more recommendations, I should like to say that save your veils, save your dodges for whenever you need that extra little health, and then use your fountain, your blood fountain, as much as possible as main means of healing. Use your blood rage as a main means of DPS. It should always be active. It lasts for quite a while, and the cooldown, it's not that bad, so that should be the rotation, and then the rotation of your skills. Ideally, usually if you're using a longsword, you're most of the cases going to be using the whirlwind, but if you're using a greatsword, which I am using a greatsword right here, the greatsword doesn't have leech, so that's one good thing to consider. But the greatsword is my favorite weapon. Yeah, you can be cycling in between them, and your blood fountain should be your main means of healing, and then your veil should be like critical means of healing, but also by providing you additional ways, additional means to getting out of harm's way. If you like the content, like, and never super appreciate it. And also, there you go, you're a beautiful person. You're indeed a gorgeous and beautiful person. Have a lovely, lovely day, and goodbye.